they
All
feel the
four
same
here
way.
now? All four or just
All
three?
four.
Yeah, all four.
So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is our fourth parent plug-in this year. And at one point, we started asking our families to tell us, like, what do you want to know more about? We want this to be a good time for you. We can certainly share a lot of the things that are happening at the school, and we'll do that today. But also, what do you want to know more about? And one of the things that our families have pretty consistently said is, tell me more about how you're measuring the performance of my child, right? We put all of these metrics out there, and folks just kind of want to know. So we're going to do a portion of our meeting today about that. But I kind of want to talk about why we started doing this. I said early on that we've kind of gone through a disruptive wave in education where families don't generally just openly trust schools anymore. It's been that way for about probably the last 20 years, but then certainly during the pandemic and post-pandemic, when there was a huge break in the communication between families and families even being allowed to be in schools, we've kind of missed some opportunity to be connected to our families. So we decided to really look at ways that we can intentionally connect with you. The parent plug-in is one. Of course, we do newsletters, we do other things, we have meetings and conferences, and we're going to keep doing that. But we're always open to different ways of being connected to you and hearing from you about your perspective and how we can keep being better. So, some recent news. We have not done any big push for fundraising in our school really in the last 4 or 5 years, especially not related to a direct ask, which is just basically, hey, if you have value to what your child is getting here and you can support us fiscally, please do that. So we put that out to community members, we put that out to parents, local businesses, and as you can see, our goal this year was $150,000. Considering that we didn't have a goal at all last year, we thought that was pretty big. We wanted to try to do that, and we're already at $105,000 right before the winter break. So we've had a lot of folks that have done some really great, surprising in size donations to us, but it's also really good for us to be able to go out and talk to partners when we start thinking about grant opportunities, we start thinking about other things we want to accomplish. One of the first things that they talk about is, what's the culture of giving at your school? How do you know that you're supported financially? And this is a way that we can demonstrate that. So we're very excited about that. We're about 71% of our goal for this year, which, considering we're only about 50% of the year done, we think is doing pretty well. We just received a growth strategy grant. We partnered with the Georgia Charter Schools Association out of Atlanta and were awarded the opportunity to do more work, which is a weird thing to get awarded, but we were. And it aligned to the things that we were doing for our strategic planning anyway. So we're looking at redefining and looking at what our strategic plan is for the next 5 years. That hasn't been done for like the last 7 years. So the timing of this was really great for us. Well, through our work with that group over the last 3 months, they said, hey, we really like what you guys are doing. We appreciate the value of what is happening at your school. To continue this work, we're going to provide you a $50,000 grant that's reimbursable before the end of this year. So we were excited to get that information. We found out right before the winter break. Staff is rested, so that's exciting. We just came back for our work day on Tuesday. Everyone was back except for 2 colleagues that are sick, but we are one of the few schools in the district that's 100% staffed. We feel very fortunate that we don't have vacancies right now. I do have a custodial vacancy, but that's just because we decided to hire one, not because we had that sitting out for a while. We've already had somebody apply, so that's good. So we are doing really well as far as staffing goes, and it was nice to have the staff return and feel like they got some rest over the break. One of the things too, so our teacher retention rate is right at around 7%, which means we keep about 93% of our colleagues each year. That's a pretty incredible statistic when you think about that across the board in education. Most schools lose about 1/4 of their teachers every year. So we still, even with people remarking, and folks in Atlanta have, folks locally have at the Savannah Chatham Board, said, wow, like you guys do a great job retaining your teachers, your talent. how do you do that? And we try to do that in a lot of different ways. Well, one of the things that the board approved this year is also the implementation of an incentive program, so that we can provide bonuses for our colleagues and try to recognize them for the work that they are already doing. So we partner with our colleagues to have them tell us, what do you think that incentive structure should look like? We have ideas. The executive team certainly has ways that we think that should work, but you're the ones doing the work, so how do you feel like that should look? And they decided that they wanted a 3-time disbursement this year for that incentive, and it gives them a chance to kind of reflect and demonstrate the work on the incentive program. So they got 1/3 right before the holidays, they'll get another third before the spring break, and another third at the end of the year. That's going really well, and folks I think we're excited. People just tend to get excited to get more money, and so they were excited to have that opportunity. And then our basketball season's in full swing, and we're really just kind of leaning into sports this year with a lot of starting our new athletics program. So the winter sports tryouts are continuing, so basketball is going on. Next Tuesday, we have the beginning of soccer tryouts and soccer season for us. And then the following Tuesday after that, which is the Tuesday after the Martin Luther King holiday, is baseball tryouts. Did I get that right, Coach? Thanks. So we're excited about that. We're also excited to try to keep our kids healthy. We had some kids come back from the winter break not completely whole, so trying to talk to them about how important that is if they want to be in sports. Like, we need to keep them healthy. Future Cities project is something that we're really excited about. It's something that we did last year. There wasn't even a Future Cities protocol in the state of Georgia last year, and our kids participated, ended up traveling to North Carolina. It was so successful that it actually came back to the state of Georgia this year, and that's something where our 7th graders are designing future cities. It's all part of their environmental science research and the things that they're doing about designing new ways for people to live in new communities. And so that Future Cities project is happening now, with students going to Atlanta to show off their work later this month, or February. I think it's in February. 8th grade high school tours. Do I have any 8th grade parents in here? I don't see any. All right, moving on. No, I'm kidding. So one of the things with having 8th grade this year for the first time, we wanted to provide opportunities for our 8th grade families to really get connected to what the high school options are in the community. So we had a big high school fair. All of the high schools, both public and private in the area, were invited. All of them showed up, save one. We're on social media, I won't tell you who it was. But they all came out. Parents thought it was really great that they had an opportunity to connect with those schools, and now we're following up with some school tours. So our 8th graders are going on school tours this week and next week at the high schools, and the schools have been very excited to host those tours. Some parents are already making the decision about where they want their child to go, but this is another opportunity for them to have some experience and see what those school cultures are like. 6th and 7th grade Junior Achievement Program. I don't know if you guys are aware, but the JA Discovery Center in the back of the Georgia Southern campus here at Armstrong has opened. It's been open for a couple of years. It kind of happened during the pandemic, but they've got an amazing program where basically kids get to go and work in storefronts and work in those businesses for a day, learning more about finance, learning more about what the opportunities can be when they have to keep a budget, when they have to make financial decisions. So we're partnering with JA. 6th and 7th grade are doing that, and that's actually happening this month and through the rest of the year. Student Success Expo. Again, for those that are thinking about school choice options, especially high school options, the Student Success Expo is something that the school district hosts each year. It's been at Savannah Mall year over year for probably about 15 years. Savannah Mall was sold, so it's not at Savannah Mall anymore, and they have an idea about where it might be, but we haven't been able to announce that yet, so we'll find out more information and share that. But it is a good chance to come out and see what's happening in schools in the community. I certainly hope you're happy here. We sent out our recommitment forms. We got a lot of those back immediately yesterday, but it is a chance to see what's happening in other schools. And our next plug-in is going to be on February the 2nd. Again, we're going to host that here right after drop-off in the mornings. that's going to be on technology. Folks often ask, what's my kid really doing with an iPad, and how can I be connected, and is this really the best way to do this, and how thoughtful are you guys with this technology, and all these great questions that we can actually defend and talk about, and hopefully help it make sense and help us continue to do a good job with this practice. So I think that moves us right into MAP, or the MAP assessment, which Ms. Beck and Ms. Ingram, they do a lot of things for our school. Ms. Beck is the Director of Curriculum Instruction, Ms. Ingram is our Director of Student Affairs, but one of the things that they share is test coordination and really helping us test our students and assess their learning and then give that information out. So they're going to take a portion of this and talk, and then I'll come back.
And the Student Success Expo is at the Savannah Civic Center.
Oh, it was finally announced. Yay, thank you.
We didn't really. So I've given everyone should have a copy of their student SNAP scores.
Yeah, you got yours.
Oh, did you get
I didn't
yours?
see it.
Okay, perfect. We're going to go over that a little bit, but we're also going to try to provide a little context. Oh no, I think we can both stand.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. Sorry, here.
We're going to provide a little context for what those scores mean, because I think if you're not sure, it can seem a little abstract when you're starting to read these reports. You're like, okay, that's just a number. That doesn't really tell me anything. So hopefully we can help you kind of understand that a little bit more. Before we even get into any of those scores, I do want to say one of the things that we've tried to emphasize with our staff, with our students, is not too much test pressure here, but we are looking for growth, not achievement. Because every student starts on their own level, and we just want to see that they're making improvements and not necessarily comparing themselves to their peers.
Can we talk about computer adaptive?
Sure, you want to talk?
So the MAP assessment is an adaptive assessment. So what that basically means is trying to pinpoint the student's level where they're performing. So how that works is they start out, if they've never taken it before, they might start out with a generic question that is kind of around what grade level that they are taking the test for. And then depending on if they get that question correct or incorrect, then the computer gives them their next question based on how they answered the first question. And that continues, so if they continue to get them correct, and maybe it's showing a pretty advanced level, then it might give, say, a first grader, I don't know, some more advanced multiplication questions or something like that, and it'll give them some advanced questions, and then once they get them wrong. So it takes this window and it starts to narrow the window as the questions are getting harder and then easier and harder and easier, and then there's a really good graphic, we should put that on there. But it begins to narrow down based on their answers. It kind of predicts where their level is. So it's not that every student is answering the exact same questions, it's giving them questions based on their prior answers, so that it can more pinpoint an accurate ability or achievement level. So
That also means the test isn't timed. It stops when we've hit that window. For our younger students, that tends to be a shorter amount of time, but for older students, it does tend to get a little bit longer and can go into multiple sessions for testing.
yes, and even the number of questions that they actually answered could vary, about 5 questions or so. So not every student is answering the same amount of questions as well.
So the score that that you receive, there's a big number on the top of that. That's the RIT score, and that's their achievement level. That's not tied to a grade level. So it's not like this is the grade level that this RIT score is in. This is a good description here. It's a stable scale like feet and inches, and it just measures a student performance regardless of age, grades, or grade level. There is some normative data on your report that we'll look at as well, but that's not what the actual RIT score is.
So it's their own scale, MAP's own scale.
So we give the test 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. Our teachers use this information to group students for instruction, remediation. Our students get the scores, and this starts to be more of a narrative as their students get older as well, talking about how they can grow, where they need to improve. So we do try to put some ownership on students, even at the lower level. Students are aware of this, and it's just a way to communicate and tell the story of how your student is doing.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is the report that all of you have in front of you. There's lots of reports that this produces, and I'm sorry yours isn't in color, but this should give you an idea of what you would be looking at. You have 2 reports, one for reading and one for math.
And you're basically seeing this part, not
Yep.
what's up there, yeah.
Yeah, you'll see, and then on the back, you'll see the chart. And I do like this chart because it gives 2 scores on there.
Oops, sorry. Now that
It-
busted through.
It will give the score from their fall assessment, and then down here, and then it might give you a second score, which is their winter assessment, but if it doesn't, it's just because there wasn't enough space, and that's the score for the winter assessment, which is on the front page. But starting on the left, this is where you actually get your comparative data here. And that is where they are actually saying like where your child falls in relation to other children in their grade level.
So 50th percentile would be considered average, right? So your growth mean, how much your child grew from the last assessment they took, the fall assessment to the winter assessment, because that's all the data we have. Last year, we took MAP. I don't know if Mr. Olber, he didn't get into how, explain this part.
Oh, how we switched.
The students who were here last year also took MAP. We took that under the district they also gave MAP, and so we were able to take that under their account. The district has stopped giving MAP, but we wanted to continue giving MAP and not change to iReady, which is what the district gives now. So we had to change to our own account, and that data did not transfer. So the reason you don't see last year's MAP scores on those growth profiles is because of the change in account and student numbers and things like that. So we do still have a lot of that data, but it just doesn't show up on the reports.
This is, I think, one of my favorite parts of the information that this gives is the quadrant chart, which you don't have the quadrant chart, but it tells you where they fall. And so you'll see either low growth or low achievement or high growth or high achievement. What we want to see, of course, is our students showing high growth and high achievement. But oftentimes what you'll see is if maybe your student is below the 50th percentile, it'll say maybe low achievement, but high growth, that is a celebration. If we have a student who is maybe a little bit lower, but they're moving up really quickly, that's awesome. That's what we love to see. What you see oftentimes too is you'll see high achieving, low growth. That's because once you're at that really high achieving level, it tends to get a little more difficult for students to continue to improve. And the gap that you see between scores each time they test gets smaller and smaller. But when you start out pretty low, it's easy to take a big jump, just to kind of help you understand what that means.
Right.
The next section, if you keep moving over and reading it, there's the instructional areas, so you can see it breaks it down by domains. For our lower students, I think it's only K and 1 that there is a foundational skills in reading, but the rest of them look the same. And the foundational skills is just phonics and phonemic awareness. And then when you flip the page, because we don't do the growth goals, it just is there. When you turn the page, there is the table there, and that's where you're going to be able to see where your student started, their second score for winter, and again, it might not show that second score if they're too close together, but it's just the score that's on the front of the page. And then it's going to compare it to at another, like the normative information, the norm student, the 50th percentile.
Right, that's that dotted line.
Questions about the report? There's a lot of numbers on there, a lot of information, and we just kind of wanted to give you some basics. Again, it's not the end all be all.
Not sure how to word this. So, after each testing time, these are available to parents, correct?
Mhm.
And
Yes.
then- Okay, so then, say if the achievement or growth was low with the teacher, or would they be able to get some information on how to help the child out at home?
Oh, so providing parents with information.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's something that I think when you sit down with the teacher for a conference about this, those are questions you can ask. Okay, so if I know my child's low in geometry, what kind of resources are there that I can help support them in that domain? And absolutely, speak to your child's teacher, and they will give you the information and the support that you need to. The map doesn't really generate anything parent-facing, though,
Okay.
if that's
Yeah.
what you were asking.
You could also, like, Khan Academy is a great resource if you did want to look at home. Like, if you know your child's in second grade and they were low in geometry, for example, it has the Georgia standards
It has
baked into the platform.
Khan Academy
Yeah.
has it has the
Yeah.
domains baked in. You could actually look up, I mean, numbers and operations is huge. So you could ask the teachers, hey, are there more specific skills that I need to work on to support numbers and operations? And then you could go into Khan and they can give you those resources and set
Yeah.
students up in it.
But that's a free web-based
Mhm.
resource that's great for,
Okay.
you know, a little bit of remediation at home.
Okay.
On the time, say each question was timed or was not?
It is not timed.
So, what, I mean, how long would you say an average student is taking?
It depends on the grade level for sure, because the younger students, it tends to take 20 minutes probably.
20 to 30 minutes, I would say, and then I would generally guess middle grades is taking about an hour.
Now, we have students that really take their time. They take it very seriously, and it does take longer.
And we try to break that up into multiple sessions then, if that's the case.
The other cool thing that MAP does is if you have a child that just doesn't really like testing and wants to not engage with this, and they start rapid guessing, it'll stop them and notify the teacher if they're rapid guessing. So the teacher will go over there and say, hey, I need you to focus, you know, or take a break. I mean, because this isn't, you know, a time test. So if we see that a student is struggling to maybe stay focused on the test, or maybe they've just had it, they've been testing for an hour, we can stop the test, take a break, and come back to it the next day.
And you said that the district changed from,
So the district gave MAP for years, and then this year they switched to giving iReady through the district.
what is iReady?
It's another type of normative test. It's similar. There's some other, I think what the district is, the real main reason they switched is because there's a lot of other supplemental activities that go with iReady on the computer that they like.
Web-based learning.
Yeah,
They
web-based
have
learning.
like gamified
Yes.
remediation. So like if a student's low in that same example, geometry, then they can spend time on the iPad doing geometry games and stuff. But, you know,
And as a team, we did evaluate that
Yeah.
tool to see if that was something we wanted to adopt as well, and we thought it was more beneficial for us to be consistent with the way we're measuring our students.
Yes.
and to remediate within the framework of how we teach
How we
anyway,
teach, yeah.
instead of.
We don't do a lot of web-based learning. We don't put kids on computers and say, hey, we're gonna learn this skill through this game.
Good.
Yeah.
So, because I'm looking at all of these. And all of my children are different, but am I reading this correctly, like, when it says possible range? Because possible range is gonna be different for each child, right? Is that where you want them, like, from a scoring standpoint? That's up at the kind of the top left corner, under like, whether it's mathematics or reading, you have the standard error area.
Yeah, so it's probably
that.
incorporating that standard deviation in that
So
possible
are you
range, so.
looking that you wanna see them fall somewhere between that range, or?
Well, so
over,
possible
under, I
range,
mean-
so this score is kind of where they think with that adaptive
Sure.
testing is where they think they fall. However, there's always some sort of error that they factor in
Sure.
with the computer-based testing. So the possible range is, well, this is the score we think they're at, but they could potentially be a 200 through a 206. So they're kind of giving you that standard deviation,
Okay.
or, you know.
If they took it 4 or 5 times, they probably fall in that.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly,
Okay.
yes.
Because
So-
that's what I'm trying to figure out, is when the score at the end, where I need to be concerned, what areas I need to focus on. Oh, that was a little bit on the lower side versus, okay, making sure I'm reading this correctly.
So if you, go ahead.
We didn't mention one thing. For our 3rd through 8th grade parents, there on the left side, there is a projections section. And we did include that. And that is the predictor for milestones, Georgia milestones, which we take at the end of the year. And the correlate between the MAP scores and the Georgia milestones is pretty accurate.
And milestones, so MAP gives us a 5-level achievement measure, where so red, orange, yellow, green, blue. But milestones is broken up into 4 achievement levels. So that helps you correlate that too. Because it's not the same as this.
So also on the bottom, there's quantile measures and readability measures. What are those scores?
So a quantile to me is like kind of like a Lexile measurement, right? So a Lexile is another tool to see what level your child is reading at. So quantile is basically a Lexile for math.
Yeah, exactly. And then you'll see on the reading one, it doesn't say quantile, it says Lexile. And a lot of times you'll see text and books and things like that in libraries that align to
A Lexile level.
Yeah, and you can also just like Google books within that range if you're looking for stuff to kind of challenge or,
Well,
you
be
know.
careful with that, though.
Yeah.
I think I always feel like this is a really big challenge with looking at Lexile levels with students who tend to be higher. So you might have a 2nd grader with a high Lexile level, which puts them maybe at a 5th grade reading level. That does not mean they should be reading 5th grade
Right.
level content. So it's a challenge when you have really high readers to find content that is engaging and appropriate for their age, but also challenging at a reading level, which is something we talk about with teachers all the time. Remember, this is just one measure of how we look at students' performance. Teachers do formative assessments and summative assessments in their classroom all the time. And we really do all of our goals as a staff. When I talk to teachers and we set goals based on this data, it's all growth goals. We really want to see all of our students in its diverse population grow, no matter where they start.
Before the milestones test, is that something they will take, or they
Yes.
just say?
In
We do.
April, there's about a week period, the test window that happened in April. Yep.
And that's the test that the state uses to evaluate how schools are performing and where they are. It goes into our CCRPI score, all that stuff. This is more of the MAP is more internal.
Yes. And they will take their final test in, I think middle grades will take it in March some point before the milestones test. And then K2, they'll kind of have a, yeah, they'll take it more closer to the end of the year. April, probably.
Are these taken in the classroom, just?
Yes.
Oh, they're not individually taken out?
Unless your child has an accommodation that says they get individual or small group testing. But if they do have that accommodation, then that's something that we'll pull the students and have them take the test there.
I just want to say I appreciate you taking the time to explain this stuff to me. My son goes to private school, and none of the teachers there gave me any of this information. I really appreciate your time for that.
Thank you. Great. Cool. Okay.
Is Mr. Ulrich still here?
What's next?
This is, oh, okay. Well, yeah. This is the next slide here. Here we go. I'll run and just see real quick. Do you want to speak to it or you want me to?
Sure, I could speak to it.
I'll go see.
See if you can find him.
Well, y'all done a great job communicating to the kids that like, how the growth changes as they get older. Tilly came home and she was Mom, they did tell me that even if it was only a little, that was good. So like, she made it very clear, because I noticed that like her testing was a little bit different from like, earlier in the year or last year, so.
Yeah. And it does, the test does account for like a summer slide.
Sure, yeah.
They've done a lot of research. New norms come out. I think the most recent norms are 2020 norms.
2020.
It probably says it on there. But I know they're already like doing research for about every 5 years, the new norms come out. 3 to 5 years.
It factors that in, like the summer slide.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, if you
Typical
actually,
slide,
if you turn
depending on
it
the
over
season even.
and you look at that national average, you can see where it dips. That is where they factor that. So.
Sorry I missed the rest of that conversation about data. I apologize. We have something going on campus. if anything, one of the things that I hope resonated is that we really try to be purposeful with the data that we gather, right? Schools have done horrible things to teachers over data and to families over data for a couple of generations now. We just haven't done a good job communicating it. We talk about high stakes. We do all of these things when really, like, it's a snapshot of information that we should be able to try to gather and make decisions on, right? Are they decisions forever? No, they're not. But it might be what kids need in that moment for us to help them go beyond wherever they are. So I think that was generally what was being communicated, but we try to take a pretty common sense approach to the numbers that we get and also try to be transparent about that. So one of the things that we talked about when we were creating our school calendar last year for this school year is the opportunity that extended intercessions could provide for us to do remediation services. We don't do summer school typically here. Island traffic over the summer, no transportation, like all of the things that make it challenging to do that. So we have tried to think what could be opportunities that we could provide services and support for kids that are really struggling. Now, as amazing and successful as TIMA is, you might be surprised to know we have kids that struggle. We do. They're not reading at the proficiency level that they need to be, or they're not calculating and computing mathematically at the level that they need to be for proficiency. So we need to be able to support that. So one of the things that we did, we wanted to do one in the fall with that first fall break that we had, but we really honestly were just getting back into and creating what this environment and culture would be with the new calendar. So we didn't have a lot of buy-in from teachers to say, absolutely, like sign me up for an extra week of work. So instead, we turned all of our focus to getting this winter assessment data so that we would have the beginning of the year data and the middle of the year data, and then making some decisions about how we could support our students for the rest of the year. So after looking at the data, talking with the teachers, we actually got an overwhelming response from our colleagues saying, I want to sign up to come in and help our kids be more successful during one of our spring intercessions. So I think you guys know we have 2 in the spring. We have one that is actually March 13th through 16th, and then there's another one a couple of weeks later that aligns to the Savannah Chatham. We're going to use that first intercession to target specifically students that we know can benefit from some extra support, and that will help them maybe move into areas of proficiency that they're not at right now. We've looked at the data, we've talked about that. We're gonna be sending that information out to families by the end of January. If you don't receive it, then you're probably not invited. That means that we are not going to be able to host and service the entire school, right? We're really looking very specifically in each grade level at students that need that extra support that are going to help them. And we're really going to be monitoring that performance from our students and see how they're doing as an outcome of that so that we can design that program better, maybe even more efficiently in the future, and if we can, offer more opportunities for that. Questions? What did I leave out?
We're targeting 2nd through 8th grade.
Yeah, 2nd through 8th grade.
And did you mention transportation?
No.
Okay, yeah, no, there won't be transportation, unfortunately.
Right.
So it would be up to the families to provide that.
It is going to be mostly a whole school day. We talked about that. And because that it's happening during that week where we're not in school, but Savannah Chatham is, we'll still be able to provide breakfast and lunch for students. So again, being really thoughtful about what that looks like to have a campus that's kind of open for a small number of kids and still trying to serve them. Any other questions? Those were thanks back for those guardrails of what we decided. Speaking of calendar, there's been a lot of discussion on social media. I've actually only received 2 emails from parents. I'm not soliciting them, by the way. But I've gotten one like super concerned email, and I've gotten like one super positive email. So balancing out. This is basically the same calendar we have this year. Last year, I presented two calendars. I presented what we called a transition calendar to a more balanced approach. And then I actually put forth what a lot of people call a year-round or a balanced calendar for this coming school year, and hit the brakes on that. Even though I actually, about the same, got as much positive as I did concerning feedback, I pulled this year's calendar, that second year calendar from consideration and just asked the board to vote on our current school year, which they did. So, one of the things that we got as feedback from parents is, like, we really want to be more involved in this process for the calendar. No problem. Ms. Solomon hosted, I will say countless, but not, you can count them, right? There
Yeah.
were like 4?
It was 3 with parents and 3 with teachers,
Right,
yeah.
3 parent meetings and 3 teacher meetings to discuss the calendar. Then, after we took all of that information and all of that feedback, we put the proposed calendar in front of our colleagues and said, hey, based on the feedback, this is the calendar that was created. Is this still the calendar that you want? Overwhelmingly, I mean, we actually surveyed, and I think it was like 80% of the staff supported this version of the calendar. So this is the calendar that we took to the board in December?
Yes, no,
Yeah,
November.
November.
But they didn't meet in
Because we
December.
didn't meet in December, thank you. So in November, we took this in front of the board. I've gotten parent feedback that has said, you know, we're worried about the staff. The staff want this, so we're good. We're worried about opportunities for remediation for summer school. We've already talked about, we don't really do summer school. And by the way, that's not a new thing with me. TIMA has just never really done summer school. In the past, there were some opportunities for kids to get summer support, but it never really looked like anything on campus. As a matter of fact, I know for a fact that one of our colleagues went to Bull Street Library and met some kids and did some summer school stuff, but it's never really looked like a traditional summer school here at TIMA. So we were trying to look for opportunities for remediation. That's why we're doing the intercession thing that we're starting this spring. So we have really tried to be thoughtful with this. I think the thing that really freaked everybody out, and I don't know why, but we're starting in July. Whoa. It's 3 days, literally. Like, we started Monday this year in August. It was the first Monday in August.
It was August 1st, yeah.
Thanks. It was August 1st. That happens to be the first Monday. We got feedback from families and we got feedback from colleagues that were like, hey, our kindergartners, our first graders, that week was long. It was hard for them to come back to school and go 5 days. Anybody have a K or 1 student right now? They were kind of tired. Teachers too, but really, like the kids, like it was, like they were exhausted by Thursday or Friday. So the conversation started, well, what if we didn't go a whole week that first week? Great. So then we start talking about opportunities to conference with parents, things that we know that parents want. We wanted to look at those ways that we can connect with families. Also look at ways that we can still build in these very logical breaks. Ta-da! I mean, this is the calendar with all of those considerations. I will also say that this is my 21st year, I think, in education. Nobody absolutely 100% loves every single calendar that comes out. It just doesn't happen, right? We do the best that we can with the 364.25 days every year that we have. Ta-da! This is it. So there is still an opportunity for public discussion and feedback at the board meeting that's happening on January 23rd. If you feel compelled to come and speak to the board, I am giving them the communications that I'm receiving from families. So if you don't want to talk to the board, but you do want to send me an email, I'm happy to send that on. You can also email the board directly. I don't ever expect that you have to go through me to talk to a board member. But this is what was presented. And so far, as I've said, I've legitimately, from all of the things that I know are happening on social media, but I don't really respond to social media, I've gotten 2 parent communications, 1 super positive, 1 with some concerns. But I wanted to give another opportunity to talk about it if you wanted to. Yes?
So we get empathy from that.
Thanks. I mean, it really is. To be responsive and to take feedback and create something that meets our needs and also respects what our families need is really challenging. I do want to take an opportunity to say that I think Laura's work has been phenomenal on this, and I'm grateful for the families and the staff members that have dedicated to what's always a contentious issue, right? But I think the work speaks for itself, and it's really well done. Next slide. So, I don't know if I had a chance to talk to you guys about this. When you work in an environment where people are really passionate about what they do, they have the tendency to take that passion out on each other in not always the most positive ways. We care a lot about kids. We care a lot about making sure we get it right, which means that we sometimes come into conflict. And so we have a really different faculty meeting model where colleagues come in and we have a little bit of open house type of, housekeeping things where we're talking about visits and things like that, but then we transition to them going to conference presentations from each other about things that they're excited about, like new ways that they can teach reading, teach math, ways that they can incorporate art into their instruction, all of those things, right? So we have those conference sessions, then we come back, they have a chance to talk to each other. Good morning, everyone, thank you. And then we're done, like that's the end of our faculty meeting. Well, the problem with that, although people can be really excited about hearing from each other, the problem is we're not really giving people a chance to vent. And so we have one session every quarter during that conference rotation called Disco Inferno, which basically means if you want to come in and start a dumpster fire over whatever you're worried about at work, you can do that. I don't go to that session because sometimes people just don't want to talk to the boss. I sacrifice Allie or Noelle and they have to go in and listen to it. And I do that for a couple of reasons. One, I want my colleagues to know that I trust my colleagues to take care of whatever their concerns are, right? But if they can't, for whatever reason, solve that, then they can come to me and we can figure it out together. So it's a really nice, very transparent way. Like everybody knows why people go to Disco Inferno. Everybody knows that they're going to complain, and that's okay. You need a place to vent in your work culture. Well, I think parents need that too. So this is your chance. If there is something that's concerning you, something that you want to complain about, Allie and Noelle can help you. No, I'm just kidding. I am more than happy to listen to what your concerns are. We may not solve it right in this moment, but I do want you to feel like you have an avenue to voice concerns that we can be mindful of and try to do something about. Ideas only get better when you share them. Schools only get better when people are talking about what's happening at school. So I'm open to that, and I'm gonna set a timer for 14 seconds. No, I'm just kidding. You guys let me know. Any thoughts, any concerns? You can also share something happy, although people don't generally go to Disco Inferno for that. Yes?
So, you talked about turnover earlier, so when you get like a new grade level of teachers, but
Yes.
how do you like merge them into the culture that's already here? Like, cause I know there's a lot, there's a learning curve with the technology that is used, and they're coming from probably other school districts, so how do they get immersed into the culture that's here?
So for the folks watching online that maybe couldn't hear the question, the question is, when we get new teachers, like if we're reconstituting a grade level or we're just onboarding new colleagues, what does that look like and how do we help prevent that turnover, right? How do we help them feel more like they're a part of? Because generally, if someone's coming from another environment, they haven't maybe been in a school or an education environment that's quite like this. I'm not kidding. Allie is probably the best to talk about this in the sense that we create a whole onboarding program and we work that together. We invite new hires in about 2 weeks before other colleagues come back, and we meet with them, and we put them through an improv course with our community partners that do improv. We call the graphic recording artist to come in and teach them about graphic recording and why it's important for kids to be able to draw out an answer, not necessarily respond in writing, right? So there's a lot of things that we do, and we kind of talk about what our values are, what it means to educate in a problem-based learning environment, how we really embrace people that are not risk averse, like they'll take risks, keeping kids safe, obviously, but if you want to be a dynamic educator, and everybody's had one, like if you've ever gone through school, you've had a teacher that you can immediately think of that like changed something about the way that you felt about school. If you want to be that type of educator, we really try to lean into what are the ways that we can help you do that? How can we help you be that successful, be that educator that you've always envisioned yourself to be? I want this to be a teacher's dream job with high expectations, right? Expectations from me, expectations from each other. Like our colleagues really have a lot of high expectations for each other too, and we try to acclimate them to an environment where everybody cares about what everybody else does. And then also the expectations from parents and the expectations from kids. Your kids want to get the best. They want to be successful. So what does it look like cultivating that day over day? And Allie and I spend a lot of time with new colleagues, and then not only during that new teacher orientation, but then throughout the year we do check-ins. We follow through with them. We see how things are going professionally, sometimes personally. You know, what's this drive like for you? You know, all of those things that we have to be mindful of when someone's coming to a new environment. If someone is talking about some concerns that they have in their work, we begin having those potential exit interviews with them pretty early on. What would it take for you to feel like you're being successful here? How can we continue to provide support for you so that you can continue to be who you envisioned when you took the job here, right? All of those things. I think that's kind of a big part of it. Allie, have I left anything out?
There's teacher mentorship as well.
Yeah.
So if you're a new teacher here, you're assigned a mentor teacher that is paired with you to support you. But the other thing, I think, even before we do the teacher onboarding, it speaks to our interview process.
And there will be a
Which
parent
I-
plug-in specifically about how we hire new teachers, because that's a core part of how you create a culture.
I mean, we look for staff members and teachers that we know will buy into our culture here and what we believe in.
One of the most
So we start out
uncomfortable-
pretty
Yeah,
good.
yeah, we do. One of the most uncomfortable things that we ask a new candidate is, tell us about the last time someone at work was mad at you. Well, first of all, it's a truth to power question, right? Like, they have to tell a potential boss that someone gets mad at them. And we really pay attention. And most everybody changes that. They're like, well, no one's ever been cross with me. No one's ever been angry. Like, they won't say mad. But if they can admit that, what I'm really looking for is apology and forgiveness, and not that the other person did. I mean, we'll have candidates say, they got mad at me, but they got over it. Well, there's no ownership or responsibility there. No, I'm serious, right?
I know you are.
That's not what we're looking for. We've already talked about this opportunity that people have to complain at work. And the reason that we do that is because people are passionate about what they do. If you don't think you're going to work in a place where you're passionate and you're going to need forgiveness, you don't need to work here. We're pretty clear about that. So, yeah, I mean, Allie and Noel are right. Like, we start during the interview, and that process kicks off this whole thing. We don't always get it right. I'm first to say that. But by and large, and I've done this training across the state, using this method and supporting teachers, you really do get high quality educators that are invested in that school community pretty quick. And then you just have to cultivate that. It's a good question.
So where do I find that information? Cause I could use that in my business. Big time.
Well, we'll talk. Yeah, I mean, we asked probably 14 questions, and maybe only 5 or 6 of them are education. There are a lot of behavior-based questions, and working in an environment where you have to take risks, and working in an environment where you have to build collaboration and community in your classroom, right? Like we talk a lot about the kids working on projects together. And folks are like, well, how do you do that? Well, you have to have adults that are willing to be engaged in that and model that also. Our students walk by the office that we all use that they call my office, but I'm never in there by myself. And I'm okay with that because what they see is adults sit down and work on problems together every single day. So it's not a big ask for us to get them to do that in the classroom. It's not foreign to them. They see that with the adults. They'll walk into a classroom and see 4 adults planning something that don't have anything to do with each other according to them, but then they'll go in the class and they're like, oh, we're doing that in social studies. Yeah, it's not magic. Like we planned on that. But for the kids, like they're like, oh yeah, I see how you guys talk to each other and figure it out. Any other questions, concerns, comments, thoughts? Okay. That's it. That's
That's
the last
all,
slide.
yeah. Oh, no, sorry. Ways to plug in.
Oh.
But I clearly did not update this one.
Wow.
It's
You
January,
missed these.
January
They
23rd.
were great.
We're a little rusty in the new year.
So there is definitely a board meeting happening on Monday, January 23rd, which is always a great way to plug in. Even if you don't want to give public comment, it's a great thing to just come and watch our board really look at the financials, look at the operations, looking at all of those things. There's a lot of data and information that's given there that sometimes you guys don't automatically see, but it's really good to go and get that information.
And we are testing out live stream this month as well. So
For
be
the
on the
board meeting.
lookout for that
Yeah.
with my advanced production abilities.
Yeah, you're doing so good.
It's
So
good. Growing and learning.
Folks, thank you for your time. I know mornings are pretty pressing for a lot of you with work and other obligations, so any time that you give to us is precious, but I'm really, really glad that you guys could come in today. If you have other questions about the performance of your child or how things are going here at school, please always reach out to us. I'm happy to reconnect with you, or at least connect you with someone that can help you more, or at least faster than I can. But thank you so much for being here, and Happy New Year.